Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Good to see everybody. Scott Hummer was not the first one here tonight. Let me know, can you see me? Can you hear me? Let me stay up here in this older portion of the chat here to get started. Just make sure you can see and hear me before I move on. I don't like talking for 5-10 minutes to find out that nobody can see me and nobody can hear me. All right, thank you, Scott. 5 by 5. All right, we're there. So I think the first one here tonight was Patty's Garden. Do me Patricia Butler. So do me a favor. She says that she won't be here tonight, most likely because she fell and has been in the emergency room all day. So if you are of the kind, please say a prayer for a rapid recovery and as painless a recovery as possible for Patty, or for Patricia. She's a very dear member of this channel, and we really do wish her well and hope that things get far better for her far quickly. Theoxorus was number 2. Scott Hummer was number 3. Let me see. We've got Sumi in early. Welcome from frigid Canada, by the way, Sumi. And we've got, I know I saw Rick from Ready Magazine in here. Welcome, Rick. Rick is working this evening, but he promised he would be listening to us, so he may not be in the chat that much. He and I communicate via messenger. So let me see, anybody else? Butch Graves, and did I say, yes, Scott Hummer. Oh, Triple G Farms. Good evening, Pete. Good to see you. L-Dog. Good evening. Good to see you as well. All right. So we got a whole bunch of people here. Let's see what we can do. This is my favorite of all the preparedness topics that we can discuss. This is my favorite. I have been involved in studying nuclear radiation, nuclear bombs, nuclear warfare since October of 1962. I lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis, and as a result of that, my next door neighbor was the block civil defense warden, and he was building a cinder block fallout shelter in his backyard. So at the ripe age of 10, I began studying fallout shelters, radiation, fallout, the rule of 710, the rule of the inverse squares, I mean, all these different things. So that's been going on now for 63 years. I've been studying nuclear warfare and everything else. As a code breaker / signals intelligence analyst, my specialty was the Frog 7 and the Scud, which are Soviet at that time tactical nuclear missile systems, and so that was my specialty. So even professionally, this has been a topic that's near and dear to me, and I can't get enough information on it. So bear with me. I may get a little bit on the geeky side this evening, and I apologize for that because Mr. Jones has done a phenomenal job of describing this in less than 5 pages in this book. If you don't have this book, it's your fault. This is probably the best compendium of quick answers to the most common topics that you need in SHTF survival. And there's all kinds of phenomenal information in here. Strongly recommend you get it. I apologize. There's going to be a little bit of background noise. I dug out my Geiger counter. It is working. It's counting alpha and beta waves right now, the amount that is hitting per minute. So if you can hear it clicking, not that often. There's one. Right now we've got 10 clicks per minute, which basically is a very, very low radiation level. It's measuring alpha and beta radiation, which is not that serious. Most alpha waves are going to be absorbed by the skin. It won't get into your interior body. Beta waves are pretty much stopped by your clothing. So, I mean, we're pretty safe from alpha and beta. It's the gamma that we really have to worry about. And we'll get into that here in just a little bit. So let's follow Mr. Jones's book. And let me get my glasses on so I can. So he's talking about 2 two different things. He's in this chapter or in this question. We're talking about both in the military. We call it CBRN: chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. So when we talk about radiological, we're talking about nuclear plant breakdowns, meltdowns, whatever you want to call it. So that's going to be kind of, a domestic type of a thing. So we need to separate a couple of things here as we begin with a couple of definitions. So number one, the difference between radiological and nuclear. Nuclear is an explosion. Radiological is basically the effects of nuclear radiation itself in the either fission or fusion arena, which can be controlled and used to produce heat. And that heat produces steam. Steam runs a turbine. Turbine produces electricity, which goes throughout the United States. I believe we have 163 nuclear power plants at this time. It would be terrible if they all had some sort of a problem. We've had a couple major nuclear meltdowns. It just so happens I did some work for Pennsylvania Power and Electric, and they owned 3 nuclear power plants of significance. The first one they own is Peach Bottom on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. That was the very first nuclear reactor brought online to produce electricity in the United States. Then they own 3 Mile Island, which is the only nuclear reactor in the United States to have an accident. And that's also in Pennsylvania on the Schuylkill River, I believe. And then they have, what is it called? Limerick. The Limerick power plant is the 3rd power plant that they own, and that was the last nuclear power plant that was brought online. And that's right in between Reading and Limerick in Pennsylvania, pretty close to Valley Forge, as a matter of fact, which isn't called Valley Forge anymore. It's got another name. And that's where we stayed in the hotel when we were working the Limerick power plant. I forget the name of it. But anyhow, so that's one definition. We need another definition, which is the difference between a bomb and a dirty bomb, okay? So a nuclear explosion, whether it be fission, fusion, hydrogen, whatever, is where we are exploding a fissile munition and causing a devastating effect as a result of that explosion, okay? Now, and there are several different types of airbursts, we'll get into those later. Airbursts produce minimum radiation. They produce an awful lot of alpha and beta, not that much gamma, okay? The gamma that is produced is going to be a direct wave. It's gone. However, if the explosion itself comes into contact with the Earth, then it irradiates the Earth that it comes into contact with. And that superheats that, and it goes up into the mushroom cloud. Then as it cools over time, it falls back down to Earth as a radioactive substance, and that's what we call fallout. It's falling out of the sky. It's nuclear radiation, and that is radioactive. So anytime the fireball from the explosion touches something that can become radioactivated, then that's going to cause that, okay? Now, the other one is called a dirty bomb. So a dirty bomb, what they might do is they might go to a nuclear power plant and they have all these spent rods that they keep in a cooling pond, usually at the nuclear power plant. So let's say somebody goes in and steals a whole bunch of those nuclear rods, still radioactive, not as much so as when they were inside the reactor, but then they tie those around a van. Inside the van, they have a whole bunch of explosive material. So notice, the explosion is not the radioactive substance, the explosion is some other chemical, okay? It explodes, and it takes those radioactive particles and throws them out, okay? So that's a dirty bomb. What has happened is the explosive effects of a common explosion throw the radioactive materials out. Yeah, they might irradiate some of the things that they come in contact with. It might be for a short while. Typically, a dirty bomb is only going to irradiate a maximum of about a 3 square block area, okay? It probably will not irradiate more than that, so it can be fairly easily contained. Just want to make sure we have those definitions up front so we can be honest about that. Rob just got a commercial. Well, Rob, thank you for watching the commercial because I am monetized, and so that what very little money I get from YouTube is because you watch the commercials. So thank you for watching that and giving us a little bit. Which reminds me, remember that the money I receive from YouTube or from Amazon sales, both of them, 25% goes to the Salvation Army, 25% goes to my county food bank, and 25% goes to the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. So 75% of any money I receive from you watching those ads, thank you very much for doing that, or from coming back and leaving a comment or watching these videos, long-term form, just turning it on and letting it run in the background so you can get a refresher while you're doing something else, that would be great, because your views and viewer clicks are important. So anytime that I get that money, it's going to a good cause. 25% stays. The last 25% that I used was to buy this microphone system to make my shorts and my other videos using my new iPhone 17. So it's my new iPhone 17. So those were provided based on that 25%. Well, no, they weren't. A very small portion of those was provided by the 25%. I think the last time I got a $100 check was maybe August of last year. Okay, so we got those definitions taken care of. Radioactivity exposure and its effects. Really good chart on page 192 of the book. It talks about the total Röntgen exposure rate, and it talks about what happens after you've accumulated so much radiation. So before we get into that, I want to talk about a couple more instruments. This is a Geiger counter, okay? So, and I've got a link for this. This is the one I have. I have two of them, actually. The other one's in a Faraday bag in the room. In case we get an EMP, I want to make sure that I have two Geiger counters so that one of them is working as a result of being in the Faraday cage. This is my Geiger counter. So this measures radioactivity. Think of it as a speedometer on a car. This measures how much radiation or the speed of radioactive ionization is taking place, okay? So think of this as how much is happening, the speedometer in your car. The other one that's important to you is this one, and this is called a rad triage or a dosimeter card, okay? So this is the odometer in your car. This one measures how fast you're going. This one measures how much you've accumulated, okay? So as you accumulate more and more radioactivity in your body, it changes according to these patterns, and you read it over here, okay? So when this one's going to measure like these, okay, and that will tell you how much radioactivity your body has absorbed, okay? Then we can take that information and apply it to the chart that appears on page 192 of Mr. Jones's book. So it tells you if you have X number of rads accumulated in your body, this is what's going to happen. So for example, 0 to 50 rads or Röntgens of radiation, no obvious symptoms, possible minor blood changes. When we get up to 400 to 500 Röntgens or rads, vomiting and nausea will affect all exposed personnel within 24 hours after exposure. Severe symptoms of radiation sickness will last months. 50% of the people in that area will die, okay? If we get up to 5,000 rads or Röntgens, then it says all exposed personnel will be incapacitated almost immediately and 100% fatalities within 1 week. So let's take a look at some of the nuclear accidents that have happened in the world since then. The first one I want to mention is Chernobyl, which happens to be in Ukraine. And funny thing, but Cherno or Chorny is the actual Russian word. Cherno is the Ukrainian word, is black, the color black. Byl is the past tense of the verb buit, which is to be. So Chernobyl means it was black. So it was black is the first major nuclear accident that we've had, and we had all kinds of radiation. I just happened to be in Germany when that happened. The government asked us not to eat any German dairy because they were eating the grass and everything on the fields, and that we were afraid the radioactive fallout was coming west from the Ukraine and falling into the pastures of Germany. So they didn't want us to eat any German fruits, vegetables. If we did, we had to wash them first and scrub them and all that kinds of stuff. Didn't want us to do any dairy because they were afraid it was going to be eaten by the cattle, processed through the cow, and then processed as milk, which later becomes the dairy products, cheese and milk. They also didn't want us to eat any German meats for the first year, right after that happened. So when was that? Was that 85? Or was that in the 70s? I forget which tour I was on in Germany when that happened. I think it was in the 80s. Helen and I were married, and I think we were living in Stuttgart when that happened. We might have still been in Augsburg. I don't know. Too much time in Germany. Gosh, it's a great place. I love it. But anyhow, so that's how you measure the Roentgens, okay? So if you're measuring this, and it says that you've got 100 Roentgens per hour coming down, and you know that you go to this chart of Mr. Jones's, and it says that you will have an effect of 5 to 10% of exposed personnel will have radiation sickness within 24 hours. You'll suffer fatigue and any disability or deaths. If it's 100 Roentgen per hour and you're at the rate of 60, and you're in this range of 60 to 120, you can go out safely for 1 hour, come back in, never get exposed again until it gets all worn off, and you're safe, okay? So that's how you use a combination of this chart as well as your Geiger counter to say, can I go out? And if I can go out, for how long? Now, if you leave this, let's say where you can see it, and it's outside, and it's measuring the radioactivity outside, and it says there's 5,000 Roentgen per hour coming down, do not go outside. You being outside for 1 second, you are committing suicide, okay? So everything is in this chart, and I recommend that you get this book so you have the chart. Tab it. That's going to be a very important rule for you. Total dosage accumulation is, so D, the dosage, is equal to the intensity, or the speed at which it is falling, times the time that you've been exposed. So D equals I times T, okay? So we already talked about alpha particles can't penetrate the skin. Beta can penetrate the skin, but usually your clothes are going to block it, so it doesn't get into the skin. Gamma is going to go through you. Now, here's the bad thing about beta radiation. Beta radiation is kind of in a dust. And so if you inhale it, or if you get it into any of your eyes, your ears, your nostrils, and it gets inside your body, then it can be fatal, okay? So yeah, it's nothing that much to worry about, but you want to wear a protective mask. You want to protect your eyes. You want to protect your ears so that beta radiation does not get inside your body when you go outside, okay? Now, I did a prepper tip number 19. This is 2 or 3 years ago. And I showed you how to construct one of these and keep it in your car. So here I have one of those cheap $1 ponchos. I have a 95 mask. I have some painter's booties. I have some nitrile gloves. I have a hoodie. I have some glasses that are, cover your entire face. So the mask is going to cover your nose. Glasses are going to cover your eyes. The hoodie is going to cover your ears. You got everything covered up. Now you can be safe from the fallout. Now remember, the fallout still has radiation, but you don't want any fallout getting on your body. Then when you get to where you're going, you can doff that equipment, very inexpensive equipment, a knife, cut through it, doff it, get off of it, get it out of you, change your clothes, get out of your clothes, do a quick rinse outside with cold water. You want to use cold water because you want to close your skin pores. Hot water opens your skin pores. And what happens if you open your skin pores and you've got radioactive dust on you? It's going to get inside your body. You don't want that to happen. So cold water to keep those skin pores closed, wash it. Do not scrub it, just rinse. Then pat dry with a towel, step inside your safe area, change into clean clothes, you're good to go, okay? Same thing, just rinse your hair. Don't wash it, don't shampoo it. You wanna make sure you get all that stuff off of you as far as rinsing. I have an entire decontamination area set up in my backyard. So I've got this covered patio, and there's going to be one entrance point that's close to the fence. You come in, you take off your clothes, throw it in the 55-gallon oil drum that I bought for that purpose. Then you're going to naked go into a shower. I have a battery operated shower with a bucket, cold water, rinse yourself off. Another area, and that's the low point on I do have a slight slope on my patio. That's the low point of the patio so that all that contaminated water washes off the patio. Then you go to another area where you're basically going to towel down, leave the towel outside. You're going to step inside the house, go get clean clothes, okay? So that's my plan for how I'm going to decontaminate against radioactive fallout. But you've got to make sure, first off, you want to protect yourself from the radioactive fallout, so get one of those. Watch my video, prepper tip number 19, radioactive PPE, personal protective equipment, okay? So let's talk about treating radioactive poisoning. So you've gotten a little bit of radioactive poisoning. First off, if you take potassium iodide, Ki, and there's a link for it in the show notes on my Amazon page. So I will get 2 cents, I think, if you buy it. But anyhow, potassium iodide protects your thyroid. It only protects your thyroid. So what it does is it supersaturates your thyroid with safe potassium iodide so that radioactivity cannot be absorbed into your thyroid, okay? It's the only thing it does. It does not protect you against any other radioactive effects. That's all it protects you against. Now, what we did find out was at Chernobyl and then later at Fukushima in Japan, where we had our second nuclear meltdown, we found out that taking apple pectin had some positive effects in treating radioactive contamination, okay? I'm not going to say it's a cure. I'm going to say there were some positive indications, okay? So apple pectin did have some marginal positive results. I don't know where you get it, but if you want to protect your thyroid, then the potassium iodide is down below in the show notes. If you're over the age of 60, don't take it, okay? Just by the time thyroid cancer appears, it'll be past your normal life expectancy anyway. So, you're taking more of a chance by taking the Ki than you are exposing yourself to thyroid cancer. Another thing is, please, if there's a nuclear explosion, don't pop potassium iodide immediately, okay? Wait until there's indications that you need to protect yourself against radioactive fallout. And that's because you don't want to take medication unnecessarily, okay? So make sure you have some indication that there is some sort of fallout before you take your medication. Rob says, check out Fear the Walking Dead, where there's an episode where they have to decontaminate from nuclear fallout. Thank you. So anyhow, so that's kind of all the things there on taking care of it. Antibiotics can be given, anti-nausea medication can be given. Internal bleeding is quite common with radiation poisoning. Do not take acetylsalicylic acid, better known as ASA. Another common name for it is aspirin, because that will just cause you to bleed more internally. So aspirin is a bad thing to take if you're under the effects of radioactive poisoning. So now let's talk about radioactive decay and the rule of sevens. Let me find it here. I have it all set up for you. So share screen. There we go. And I want to do the rule of rule of 710. Okay. The rule of 710. Okay. So this is time across the bottom, and this is radioactivity on the vertical line. So for every 7 hours of time, there will only be 10% of the radioactivity remaining. So you'll have 90% of the radioactivity will go away within the first 7 hours, okay? Now, back in the 60s, when I first got into this, they said they wanted us to stay in a fallout shelter for 2 weeks. So let's take a look at the reasoning behind that, okay? It's from the 710 rule. So the first 7 hours, 90% of the radioactivity goes away. So at the end of 7 hours, there's only 10% radioactivity left. Okay. Now we're going to do another multiple of 7. So 7 times 7 is 49. So at the end of 49 hours, there's only 10% of 10% left, or 1% of the radiation is left after 49 hours. So now let's take 49 hours is basically 2 days. So let's multiply that by 7. Once again, the number 7, which just happens to be the number of days in a week. So now we have 14 days. So after we've had 14 days, now we're down to where we have 1/10 of 1% of the total radioactivity remaining in the residual on the ground effect. So we're down to 0.1% radioactivity, which is acceptable for you to go out in short periods of time in, okay? So that's how that whole theory behind stay inside your shelter for, who is that? NC Douglas, North Carolina Douglas, good evening, welcome. So that's how that whole idea of stay inside your shelter for the first 2 weeks came about, okay? So that's the rule of 7-10. For every multiple of 7 in hours, so 7 and then 7 times 7 and then 7 times 7 times 7, there is a 90% reduction, or only 10% remaining radioactivity. That's the 7-10 rule. The next one is that there are 3 things that protect you from radioactivity. There's time, there's distance, and there's shielding, okay? So we just talked about time. Remember, that's the 7-10 effect. So after 7 hours, there's only 10% of the radioactivity left. That's time. The next one is distance. So the further away you are from the source of the radioactivity, the less effect it will have on your body. And that is called the law of the inverse squares. So let me do another share screen here, and I'll show you how that works. Let me see. Where's my inverse squares? Oh, there we go. Okay, so you're at this point here, and so now it's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen those old oscillating water sprinklers, you know, they sprinkle a little bit of water, but as it goes further and further out, the water kind of falls apart, and you don't get as much water way out as if you did up close. Well, that's the same thing with a nuclear bomb. The further away you are, notice you've got full concentration here, but as you're this far away, 1 meter away, you're only going to get 1/4 of it, okay? And then when you get, you're going to get the full 1%, okay, 100%. Then when you get away to 2 meters, now you're going to take 2 times 2 squared. So the amount of radiation you're exposed to, if this is you here, is only 1/4 of the amount that you would have been at 1 meter, okay? At 3 meters away from the radiation, it's 1/3 squared. So you're down here. So that same amount of radiation has been dissipated over 9 square meters, and you're in this square meter down here. So you're only going to get 1/9 of the radiation. So as the further away you are from the radiation, the more it fans out, and the less concentration is going to actually hit your body. So that's the law of inverse squares. That's the second one, distance. So you have time, 7-10 rule, distance, the law of the inverse squares, and then the third one is shielding. So the more stuff you can put between you and the source of the radioactivity, the better off you are. And hopefully it's going to be some sort of a blocking material like soil. Well, you can even use water, but it just has to be a lot of it. But soil, lead, steel, wood, you can even stack up books against the wall where you think the radiation is going to come from, and that's going to do a good job of blocking radiation. Now remember, radiation travels in one direction only. It doesn't make any bends, it doesn't turn, it doesn't curve, it's all a straight line. So you want as much shielding between you and the explosion as possible. And so that is the law of inverse squares. Okay, now The next one is, it depends. Remember I told you, it depends upon whether it's an air burst or a surface burst. There's actually 4 kinds of bursts. There's a high altitude air burst, and we call that an electromagnetic pulse. So it has to be way up high, more than 20 miles in the sky in order to produce an EMP. That's going to have the effect that we're all talking about as far as an EMP. The next one is like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It has to be where the explosion is above the ground. The fireball from the explosion does not come in contact with the ground, okay? The third one, if I can do this with these fingers, the third one is going to be a surface burst. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get something that they think is kind of semi-underground. But once you do a surface burst, you lose a lot of the effect of the overall explosion. You're sacrificing explosion for radioactive fallout, okay? But you're also concentrating about 50% of that explosion in one area in the ground. The next one is a subsurface burst, where you penetrate the ground and then the explosion happens underground. Probably not going to throw up as much radioactive material fallout. However, it is going to have a very devastating effect on the area underneath, and it will have long-time radioactive effects. That'll be a contaminated area probably for decades. So those are the 4 types of blasts. I have a slide on that, but I'm not going to show it to you. I guess I could show you those. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this just has an air burst like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a surface burst, and a subsurface burst, okay? Showing you the effects of the 3. Now, I know a lot of you, I see a lot of people on YouTube saying, I'm going to live through a nuclear explosion, a nuclear war, whatever. A couple of things I want you to take into account. Number 1, 75% of the residents of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were still alive and well 1 year after the bombs were dropped. It only killed 25% of the population in both cases. And because they were both air bursts, there was no significant fallout. Okay, so the area was not really that contaminated. No? So that's number 1 I want you to consider. Number 2 is, and I've got a good one here for you on that as well. There are people like Annie Jacobson who wrote her book, Nuclear Warfare, or whatever it was. Don't get that. It's all of her sources are basically anti-war, anti-nuke, far left. She paints the worst possible picture. It can happen, but I don't think it will happen. Let me see here. Where is this? Okay, here is the nuclear weapons stockpile. So here's something I want you to take into consideration as we take a look at this one. So these are the total number of nuclear warheads available by country, okay? So if we take a look, for example, the number 1 holder of nuclear weapons in the world is Russia. They have a total inventory of 5,459 warheads, of which 4,380 are in their inventory, but only 1,550 are deployed, okay? So of that 1,550, that's divided up into 5 or 4 major areas, okay? I'm going to include strategic bombs with the intercontinental ballistic missiles. So you've got the intercontinental ballistic missiles. Those are the ones we have to worry about. Submarine-based ballistic missiles. We have to worry about those because they're off our shores. Then you have intermediate range ballistic missiles, IRBMs. Those are the ones that are going to focus on NATO, okay, or other areas right around the Soviet Union. Russia, I'm sorry, I worked the Soviet Union problem for so long that I can't get it out of my mind. Remember, the Assisi River is a border between China and Russia. They constantly have battles over the border there on that river on a regular basis. And so Russia considers China an enemy, a long-standing enemy. So, they aren't going to buddy up with them too quickly because they've seen what China does to its buddies. And then number 4, it's got tactical warheads. Tactical warheads are like what I worked with the Frog. Intermediate range was the Scud. So, I have a lot of expertise in that. About 25% of their inventory can't reach a distance more than 30 miles away from them. Okay. So when you take a look at these numbers, people are going to quote you this number up here, but in reality, we're only talking a fraction of this number that are going to be used against the United States. Then you have to consider what are they going to target. Okay. Annie Jacobson in her book would have you believe they're going to target anything and everything. No, they're going to go after command and control nodes. I don't think they're going to go after nuclear silos. And the reason I don't think so is because it takes 30 minutes for an ICBM to fly over the pole and to come into our launch sites in North Dakota, Wyoming, Arkansas, Missouri. So because it takes that amount of time, we will identify them and we will counter launch. So if they target our nuclear missile silos, they're going to hit empty silos because we will have launched within that 30-minute time period. I think they're going to go for ports. They're going to go for runways, runways that are capable of handling the B-1, the B-2, the B-52, any of our long-range strategic bombers, any of our KC-135 or KC-10 strategic refuelers. Anything that has an extremely long runway, that's going to be a target. The ports are going to be a target. The National Guard Armory down the street from you is not a target. Fort Hood is not a target. The entire division at Fort Hood is not going to do anything against Russia unless we can put them on airplanes or put them on boats and ship them across the sea to Russia. So they're just a paperweight sitting here in a strategic war. They are nothing. They are no threat to anybody. So all of those things you typically think, well, there's a Air Force Reserve base 100 miles away from me. No, it's not going to get hit unless it's a KC-10 refueling, a refueling type of an airport or a strategic bomber airport. And those are pretty much, we're looking at Minot, North Dakota, I forget, Barksdale, Missouri, Davis-Monthan Davis-Monthan is in Abilene, and what's the one in, no, Davis-Monthan's in Tucson. What's the one in Abilene? Dyess Air Force Base. Those are our 4 primary bomber bases in the United States. I think those are targets, yes, but I don't think the others are. Then after that, you're going to go after major population centers. New York, probably the 10 largest cities. Austin, of course, here is number 11. But, the 10 to 20 largest population centers, yeah, they're probably going to be toast. Our financial centers, Dallas, Houston, New York. If it's a financial center, San Francisco, yeah, it's going to go. They want to totally decapitate that. We've got very low frequency communication centers with our submarines on the East Coast and the West Coast. Those are gone. Okay, so you start thinking about the command and control, population centers, financial centers, runways, ports. You're pretty much taking care of all their strategic weapons, and that's where it's going to go from there. Okay. Now let's see what we've got here. He shows you the rule of 7, 10, and then he talks about radiation detection instruments. The next one he talks about is prevailing winds aloft, if there is any kind of a fallout that's going to be happening. So every morning when I get up, one of the first things that I do, stop sharing, I meant to say that a while ago. One of the things that I do when I first get up in the morning is I go to windy.com and just see which direction the wind is blowing, the winds aloft. That's going to tell me if it's coming from the south, and something they hit Austin, I better be prepared possibly for fallout. If the winds are coming, or even San Antonio, if they're coming from the southeast and heading northwest, then if they hit Houston, I'm kind of, kind of toast. If it's coming from the north going south and they hit Dallas, I'm probably going to have some sort of an effect. So make sure that you take a look each morning at where the winds aloft are coming from, the direction of the winds. So you know where is the fallout possibly going to come from. And that way you can pay attention to where the bombs are falling and you're pretty safe. Oh, while we're at it, the Russians have a triad, just like we do. They have their submarine launched ballistic missiles. They tried to launch one last month, and it blew up on launch. So that they have not kept a very good repair of all their nuclear weapons. Then they have their land base. Good thing about their land base is most of them are on carriers, or what we call TELs, a transporter erector launcher, TEL. So they are highly mobile. They aren't in one place all the time like our silos, which are underground. They're fixed targets. Theirs, we don't. We have to track them with satellites, so we know where they are to target those. And then I'm sure the minute that they launch, that they're going to move somewhere else. And so that's an empty launcher anyway. Then, of course, they have their bomber force. Now, their bomber force is primarily bears and bisons. Okay, so the Tu-95, Tupolev 95. Bear is their #1 strategic bomber. It's propeller driven. Here's a secret. NATO code names. If it starts with a B, it's a bomber. If it's one syllable, it's a propeller driven bomber. If it's 2 syllables, then it's a jet driven bomber. Okay, same thing with the Fs are their fighters. So Faggot, Fulcrum. If it's 2 letters, if it's 2 syllables, then it's a fighter jet. If it's 1 syllable, then it's a propeller-driven fighter. And same thing with their cargo planes. All start with a C, Cub. Everything else same rule always. Think about it. The Tu-95 Bear has to fly. It's going to take 9 hours to get here. And we have all kinds of naval forces and all kinds of allied forces out there that it's got to fly over. You don't think that it's not going to be shot out of the sky? Now, they don't have that many bisons, and thank goodness for the Ukrainians, they took out half of them with drone strikes here about 6 months ago. So their jet bomber fleet is only 50% of what it was 6 months ago, thanks to the Ukrainians. So we're pretty good there. They probably are not going to use those. The other thing is their Tsar bomba, which is the largest bomb that's ever been exploded, can only be delivered by a bomber, cannot be delivered by an ICBM. It's too big. So the biggest warhead can't hit us. It has to be delivered by a bomber, a propeller-driven bomber. Takes 9 to 10 hours to get here. Will most likely be shot down. We're pretty much safe. When Chernobyl happened, radiation. Yes, there was. It's been encapsulated. We talked about that earlier. But it's pretty much been encapsulated. That was not a nuclear explosion. It was a nuclear meltdown. So it's a totally different thing. Just totally different. Yes, who is that? Can't tell who that is. Got to put my glasses on. Sin Melly 637. Yes, good comment. Yes, I said that earlier. I was in Stuttgart, I believe. I was either in Augsburg or Stuttgart when Chernobyl happened. And so, yeah, we couldn't eat dairy. We couldn't eat anything that was, couldn't eat any vegetation, couldn't eat any dairy products, couldn't eat any meat. There are a lot of things we could not eat in Europe as a result of potential, never proven, but potential fallout. Rob, I'm going to give you a better solution in fallout maps here in just a second. So, like I said, getwindy.com. Check it out every morning. It's going to tell you the prevailing winds. So that's going to tell you how, what direction the fallout, if there is fallout. Remember, it has to be a surface burst. My personal opinion, okay, that's all it is. Take it for what it's worth. My personal opinion, they want our resources. They are not going to irradiate our country because they want to come in and occupy it. We've got some of the most fertile croplands in the U.S. We've got some fantastic mining. We've got the 3rd largest oil reserves in the world. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we have here that if we go to war, they want. They aren't going to take a chance and irradiate all that with surface bursts. They're going to use air bursts. Number 1, it kills more people. Number 2, it does not irradiate the ground, and they can come in and exploit our natural resources a lot quicker. Sin Melly was in Mannheim when Chernobyl happened. Mannheim. Mannheim is famous for a couple things. Number one, it's got it used to have the POMCUS, the positioning of military configured unit sets. So when I was at Fort Riley in the 1st Infantry Division, we did Reforger every year. We'd fly over, be bused to Mannheim, Coleman Barracks, Funari Barracks, and I forget what the third one was, Spinelli Barracks. But the 3 different barracks that had an entire division's worth of equipment in warehouses. Our agreement with the German government was that we could field an entire U.S. infantry division in Germany within 72 hours of war breaking out. So they would get notification, go to Salina, Kansas, where they had a longer runway that would take the C-141 Starlifters and the C-5A Galaxies. We'd board those, fly over to Europe, go to Mannheim, Funari Barracks, anyhow, those 3 barracks I told you, Coleman, Funari, and Spinelli, I think, and draw our equipment. And then we'd go to a deployment area, and we would be the 5th Division in Europe by that time. And then the second thing it's famous for is that was the U.S. disciplinary barracks, or the prison for U.S. Forces Europe, U.S. Army Europe. Okay, let me see. I was going to show you nuke map. So write this down. Now, link will be in the show notes, okay? But write this one down. This is extremely fun. I strongly recommend it. It's Nuclear Secrecy by Alex Wallenstein. And so let me see here. Nuke map. There we go. By Alex Wallenstein. Okay. You'll like this one. Okay, so we're going to share it. Now, over here on this simulator, there are several things that you can do. It says drag the marker to wherever you would like to get it. So right now it's set up over San Antonio. We'll just leave it there for right now. You can move it. Well, I guess I'll show you this, so just so you can see how it works. Let me get to the actual map. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put here, now I'm going to move it to Austin. So I'm just going to put Austin, Texas, and then hit go. So now it moves the detonation over Austin, Texas. I'm going to move in for a little bit more of a zoom, okay? And the next thing I can do is I can choose a warhead yield. Now, you can put in your own, or you can select a preset. Now, these are all of the current warheads that there are. It includes the Tsar Bomba, which is the largest, but remember I told you that chances of it getting to the United States are slim to none. So my personal preference is that I use the Dongfeng 5, which is China's current ICBM, and it's a 5 megaton warhead. So we're going to say we're going to blow it up right over the capital, right there, okay? So we're going to blow it up right over the capital of Austin, Texas. We want to show the basic options. We're going to do an airburst first to show you the difference. We're going to do other effects, casualties, and radioactive fallout, okay? So now we're going to hit detonate, and boom, it shows us, okay? So the first thing it says is we're going to have about 505,800 casualties, and then 484,000 injuries, okay? So now we're going to take a look at what the different bands around it mean. So it's going to have a diameter of about 1.26 miles. Then we're going to have a moderate heat damage and total devastation by blast in this area here, okay? The next one we're going to have is thermal radiation. So that gamma radiation we talked about earlier, you're going to have third-degree burns to your body if you're exposed to it. It will ignite automobile gasoline, anything that is flammable, stuff like that. So you're going to have, this area here is going to be consumed by fire, okay? And then you've got the gray area out here. So here's Round Rock right here. Ta-da. So we are in the light blast damage. Change that, and I want to show you the difference between an air burst and a surface burst. Remember this one, the direct radiation is gamma radiation, very limited, okay? But now we're going to go back and we're going to do a surface burst. So all we're going to do is change it from air to surface, Everything else remains exactly the same. Detonate. And you notice now we've got some more things that are happening, okay? Right now, the prevailing winds are out of the southwest. So our fallout from the nuclear fallout is going to be here in the round rock area. So I'm going to have minimum fallouts, just like we did with the surface. Not as much. Notice it's kind of condensed now. There's not as much surface damage as there was before, but there's a lot more radioactive damage and radioactive fallout. So now you can see the plume. It's going to be dispersed as it goes downwind, and that's going to take care of that. So this is nuclearsecrecy.com/nuke, N-U-K-E map, and there is a link for it in the show notes so you can play with it, blow up a bomb, theoretically, somewhere, a target close to you, and see how it will affect you. So I stop sharing. We're going to go back to the live. So what'd you all think of that? Gamma is the absolute worst of all of the radioactive things. Beta can be bad if you inhale it, okay? Okay, so some things I want to show you. Nothing beats having a good gas mask. Now, I recommend this one from Mira Safety. I am an affiliate. There's a link down below. It is a full face mask, so it's going to protect your eyes, it's going to protect your nose, and it's going to protect your total ingestion system as far as protect your lungs and everything else from getting any kind of radioactive materials inside your body. The next thing you have to do is protect your ears so you don't get anything in there. Once again, any kind of a hood, plastic hood. If you get that poncho, that $1 poncho at Walmart, and put it on, then put a hat or something on so that it keeps it tight. Tighten it here, then your ears are protected as well. You're pretty much taken care of, okay? Gloves, booties, and you're really taken care of. Okay, some other things I want to recommend. If you're really a geek into this stuff like I am, you can get the book on nuclear weapons. A very short introduction, fantastic book. It's all about nuclear weapons, how they're used and everything else. This is a good book on nuclear power, so it differentiates between nuclear explosions that are used for military purposes, as well as it puts it into how we have controlled explosions, basically, reactions to power our power plants. So this is fantastic. The third one is just to basically understand everything with nuclear that goes on nuclear-wise, nuclear physics, understanding it. It's a lot more difficult than just simple sodium hydroxide plus hydrochloric acid produces this thing, you know, NaOH plus HCl equals NaCl, sodium chloride or salt, plus H2O, water, right? It's a lot more than that. You got to understand the physics behind it. So a lot of stuff there. I recommend, Kayleen, I recommend against the Tyvek suit, and I'll tell you why. I recommend something very simple like the poncho, because you can reach inside your pocket, take a knife, and just cut it straight down, and it falls off of you. A Tyvek suit, you basically zips up and everything else. Now you're going to have to take an awful lot of time to take it off. You're going to, struggle to get your arms out and everything else. You're going to be throwing radioactive dust all over the place as you're doing that. So all that dust that is accumulated on the outside is going to get inside while you're trying to take it off. Poncho is the best thing. It's the cheapest and best thing. Just cut it, let it fall off, and all that radioactive fallout goes away from you. That would be my recommendation. You can get Annie Jacobson's book. I don't recommend it. If you want to see the other side, the left, and how they scare people and everything else, and tell people you don't want to live in this and all that kinds of stuff, it's based after Carl Sagan in his 1968 work with the T-TAPs. T-TAPs are the 5 people who were involved in the study. I forget all their names, but S is in the T-TAPs is Sagan, Carl Sagan. He was an anti-war activist, and they came up with the nuclear winter theory, and they came up with the mutually assured destruction theory, and all these other kinds of theories. So everything he did was to tell us, do away with nuclear bombs, because, nobody can survive. So that is what has dominated movies and books ever since, is the Carl Sagan T-TAPS mad nuclear winter theory. Even the Australians with their Mad Max series. I don't think it's going to be that way. Okay, I think that most of us are smart enough in the military not to use surface bursts. We're going to use air bursts, maximize the destructive power, minimize the radioactivity. In my opinion, right now, the best book on the market concerning radioactive nuclear survival in a post-war. Not that I really enjoy the book or anything, but look at all my tabs. And then when you go to a tab page, you're probably going to find all kinds of highlighted crap too. This page isn't even tabbed, and I got highlighted stuff. But anyhow, best book I've read in the last 20 years, to be honest with you. Get this one. The link is in the show notes. I bought this one in Augsburg, Germany in 1980. You can see this was $9.10 at the Army Stars and Stripes bookstore in Augsburg, Germany in 1980. So this was the very first edition of Nuclear War Survival Skills. This is the second best book on the market about this. I have a link for it in the show notes as well. You're not going to get the first edition. You're going to end up getting the 2022 edition, which was put out right after the invasion of Ukraine. And so this is a lot thicker than the first edition. Got a lot more information in it. Fantastic copy. Make sure you get a copy of this one as well. So I would say that there are 3 books you want to survive nuclear fallout or nuclear war. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Make sure you get yourself a Geiger counter. Make sure you get a rad triage dosimeter card, or you can also get the little pins. You look through it, and it tells you your total radioactive consumption as well. Make sure you build yourself a personal protective kit, equipment, and you can go to my short number 19, which is how to build your own nuclear PPE kit. I keep one of these under each seat in both my pickup as well as my car. So I have a total of 8 of these, one for each position in both of my vehicles. So that's pretty much where we are, and that's pretty much got everything covered I wanted to cover this evening, and we're on time. I can't believe it. That's the book I have. I love it. What years were you there? I was in Augsburg. The first time I was in Augsburg from January of 77, January 76 until November of 80. And then I was at Wobeck, Germany, which is just south of Checkpoint Alpha, a little place called Detachment Wobeck in a little town called Schöningen. And that was up in the British area of the Rhine. I was there for most of 84. And then I was in Augsburg again for 85 and in Stuttgart 86 and 87. When was Chernobyl? 86. So 86, 87. I was in Stuttgart. Okay. I was in Stuttgart. I thought so. We were in Pattonville in Stuttgart. All right. So that's pretty much it. What questions do you have? This is, like I said, this is just that subject that I am just totally enamored with. I hope it doesn't come to fruition. I hope we don't have to use the knowledge, gosh, it's just one of those things, that I've been doing this now for 60 years, studying nuclear bombs and nuclear warfare, and so it's my personal opinions. There's some stuff, some stuff is not my personal opinion, like the 710 rule and the rule of inverse squares and the thickness of shielding that you have and all that kinds of stuff. Those are all scientific. The rest of it's kind of my opinion. Okay. Well, with no additional questions, then we will shut this down. And I apologize, we did not have a fiction book club at the end of January. We will not have one again at the end of this month. I teach a class. I'm a member of Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and I teach a class to the extremely poor on how to get out of poverty. And last class we gave last year was only on Tuesday nights. And this year, the chief instructor decided that she wanted to do Tuesday night in person, and then the next session on Thursday nights on Zoom, over Zoom. So my Thursday nights all of a sudden got occupied with teaching the poor how to get out of poverty. And so I apologize. We won't have a fiction book club until March, okay? But we're still going to do the 199 days, the preparation. We'll still do that same book. I'll put a link for it down in the show notes as well. Okay, everybody. So, book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. Remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Oh, please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. Remember that the only way you get through this is together. Togetherness is the key. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your patience and understanding and listening to me ramble. I greatly appreciate that. But hopefully you got something out of this, and hopefully you'll be able to survive a nuclear war should it happen. Remember, if we take a look at what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there is a 75% chance you will survive a nuclear war. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.